Hello, yes, Jonathan Swift here. And today we're going to be talking about the difficulties of shipping within a pirate-like environment. As you know, shipping has gone up, and that's not something that we particularly here enjoy. What? No, questions later, if you please. Huh? Oh shit. Hello and welcome to this episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy and today we're going to be looking at nautical games, how to run nautical games. I know it's a theme on this channel for this month, but hey, it's nautical month as far as I'm concerned. Nautical October. No, it doesn't have the same ring as Inktober and all the like, but nonetheless, we're talking nautical games. Now, before we go any further, I think there's lovely painting behind me. Beautiful, beautiful painting. It is actually a painting. It's not live video. You can tell that by the fact that there's no little flickering on the image. But yes, this beautiful painting is done by a Danish artist who was born in 1818 and died in 1875. And his name was Anton Melbier. Anton Melbier. And this is called Marine Maleri med skip I Hardazo. I think. Something about a ship in the hard seas, or pulling hard to port, or something. I'm not entirely sure. It's based around Copenhagen. It's a beautiful, beautiful painting. And the reason why I bring it up specifically today, whilst we're talking about nautical games and the like, is because we have to deal with these things. When we talk about nautical campaigns, we're talking about expectations, established material, and sources. Now, of course, this is a standard setting exploration, so you know the drill. We're going to go through these three things, unpack how they can be useful to you and why you should know them and why you should focus on them. And then we're going to give you some bonus material right at the end for staying with us. Aha! Okay, so we're talking expectations. Expectations. What do we expect from nautical campaigns? We expect ship versus ship battles. Yes, we do. We want to fight out on the open seas. We wish to fire off the weapons, load the cannons, take aim, fire a broadside. That's all the stuff that we want to do because it's a ship-based campaign. When we see imagery like this, high sails, all the wind flapping around, all the loose jibs and all those kinds of things, we want to do ship versus ship battles. If you're not doing ship versus ship battles, why are you bothering with a nautical campaign? All you've done is made a very moist adventure. So that's not what we want to do. So sea monsters. We expect sea monsters. If you're playing in a fantasy game, you have monsters. And I've done videos on how to make Titanic monsters so that they really are big and scary. You can upgrade your monsters. It doesn't matter what system you're playing in, by the way. This is for all nautical campaigns. You want sea monsters. We want mermaids. We want sirens. We want all of the risks that run with, prodding a kraken. All of those kinds of things. We expect that. We expect treasure. X marks the spot. There's a whole reason for that. It doesn't have to be X. It could be Q, for example. It could be P. It's a bit weird, though, if you label it as P. We need to get to P. Well, all right, there's a bush. Go. So avoid some of the letters. But yes, generally speaking, it's about finding treasure, lost treasure, buried treasure, forgotten treasure, secret treasure, stealing treasure, getting treasure, obtaining treasure, losing treasure, finding treasure, burying treasure, sinking treasure, recovering treasure. It's about all those kinds of wonderful things that we get with treasure. It's about nautical issues. Nautical issues. This is so often forgotten about. Life at sea. On my live stream this last couple weeks, we spoke about how to come up with games that the sailors might play on a ship, whether it's grog or rum or there's some weird and wonderful ideas that came up. But during the stream, we had 100 people. We had 100 suggestions for 100 different types of dice-based games that sailors might play at sea. But that's not just the only thing. Running out of food, running out of water, looking for those kinds of supplies, as well as mutiny. That's what we expect. We expect a mutiny. You're being dropped off at the nearest island. I'm sorry, Captain. We just don't like you anymore. You're boring because you never take us into ship battles. You avoid the sea monsters. We haven't found treasure in a long time. I don't know what's happening to my voice. And Well, the nautical issues are pretty bland, actually. So we expect these kinds of things. We expect boarding other ships, swinging across on that rope as we land onto the next ship. These kinds of films, these kinds of things, we're going to talk about sources a little bit later, but to give you an idea, the expectations that we have are derived from our general collective experiences. And those go back all the way to Captain Blood, with the black and white films with Errol Flynn in the 1930s. They go all the way back there, where we have this amazingly romantic idea of life at sea. Does it have to be romantic? No, it could be giant crashing wave. Okay, this is not a giant crashing wave. This is a little crashing wave. But, it could be spectacularly, it could grow, or its parent could be just behind it. So the idea is that this is what we expect. If you're not delivering on these points, it means that your nautical campaign is either set in real world, in which case, fly out the sea monsters, and that's it. Everything else remains the same. If it is a fantasy world, up the sea monsters and up all of the other kinds of monsters as well. We've got so many wonderful monsters that we can draw from in history. Are your mermaids, are they nice? Are they Ariel-esque, where they just want to shag humans? Or are they demonic monsters that prowl the seas wanting to eat humans? Slight difference. So we then go, okay, what's been established? What is established in terms of this setting? So when we come to designing our nautical campaigns, what do we need to take into account? So we need to take into account, that's what everybody's going to be playing the game is expecting. So what has been established in terms of almost like the rules of nautical campaigns? Well, an NPC crew of 4 or 5 memorable people. This is something that you're going to need to develop. It's something that you're going to need to design, and you just have to do it. To have a giant sailing ship, or even a little ship like that, it looks like a sloop perhaps, or an early form of a bark or something like that. A very small little sailing ship probably has a crew of around about 25 people. So you need to have at least 4 or 5 memorable NPCs. The crusty chef, the loyal first officer, the old bosun who sailed around the 7 seas, the non-speaking whale-hunting harpoonist from deepest, darkest, wherever. You need to come up with at least 4 or 5 NPCs. You do not need to come up with 40 NPCs because the ship has a crew complement of 40. The PCs don't care, you've got too much to manage, so you need to come up with 4 or 5 memorable ones that the PCs can turn to. So what I generally do when I'm running these kinds of games is I come up with a list of NPCs that fulfill the basic requirements of the system that I'm using. So whether you're using Ghosts of Saltmarsh, you're using my own system, whether you are using 7th Sea as a different role-playing system, if you are using, there are so many pirate-based RPGs out there. I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but whatever system you're using, it will describe certain roles that need to be fulfilled aboard a ship. So we need to do that. We need to fulfill that with NPCs so that the PCs don't get bogged down in day-to-day ship operations. Remember, there's a difference between I'm captain of the ship and, all right, Captain, I've got 500 pages of paperwork here for you to fill out. Then you've got to balance the books and you've got to do your rounds. And, oh yes, this has become an accounting game. We don't want that. We don't want that. The ship, the captain of the ship, the first officer of the ship, the gunner of the ship, those are cool positions. We don't want to spend time exploring the mundane and the boring. Maybe once or twice in your campaign to give it flavor and to give us a sense that there is more to being a captain than just being swashbuckling and being heroic. But generally speaking, we want to have 4 or 5 people in the background who make things happen. So when the PCs arrive at port, you could spend a double session or a single session where they have to go and buy supplies and haggle with the quartermasters and the dockyard workers for the best price for 12 barrels of pickled pig because the ship's stores need to be refilled. You could do that. Is that going to be fun and exciting? Maybe the first time round, but by the second time round, it should be the second officer or the third officer who says, Captain, give me 100 gold, I'll go and sort out the supplies. The captain gives the first officer 100 gold pieces, he disappears, he comes back with all the supplies that are needed. Thank you very much, done and dusted. And of course, these NPCs start fulfilling your roles of guide and mentor and supporter and follower and all those kinds of wonderful different roles that NPCs should fulfill, so that the PCs are free up to do what they need to do. Now, the command structure. Get out of the way, you the command structure needs to be decided before. You must decide on a command structure before. Are the crew going to be a democracy, highly inefficient when it comes to these kinds of operations? Is there going to be a captain, a first officer, a first mate, a third mate, a 15th mate, who knows what? Are they going to be in position or not? You have to decide this with your players before you even start your game. Unlike other games where you don't have to worry necessarily about leadership, when it comes to nautical campaigns and space-based campaigns, because basically a spaceship is the same as a sea ship, when it comes to those kinds of games, you need to decide on the command structure first. Sometimes players will say, oh, I want the captain to be an NPC, so we can just listen to him and he can give us orders and we can go off and do our own thing. Sometimes the players say, no, we'll just, we'll fudge it as we go. Sometimes the players go, oh, actually, it would be quite nice if you were captain, or if you were the first officer, or if you were the doctor, or again, whatever the roles are that you need to fulfill. Let them decide upon it beforehand. What are the benefits and what are the negatives? I'm trying to keep these videos shorter, but it's not going to happen. So, what are the advantages of a captainless or a group decision-based situation? You are going to get players. Here are the advantages. The advantages are players are equal. There is no one player who's in command, so players can decide, debate, and argue for hours and hours and hours on end. Yes, I know it's an advantage, about the course of action. So that's fine. There is no one person telling them orders. There's no chance of them mutinying against a fellow PC because no one PC holds order or power over the others. That is a major advantage. There is no friction that's caused because everyone is just getting along doing their own thing. The disadvantage of that, however, is that you need to decide whether you want combat to be timed, realistic, simulated, accurate, vaguely tense, or not. Because in a democracy-style situation where the characters have to decide on what the ship is doing, the characters might fall into position, but that's a separate type of game. I'm going to get there just now. The characters might fall into a type of position, or they might be going, oh, what should we do? Oh, I think we should fire. Yeah, let's fire the cannons. Let's fire the trebuchet. Let's fire the laser. Oh, no, we should do this. No, we should do that. No, we should do this. There's this collective we that forms, and as a result of it, things slow down. There's no one voice saying, fire the cannons, increase speed, drive us forward, avoid their weaponry, evasive maneuver, pattern delta. There's none of that going on. So the disadvantage is that your game slows down as this democracy tries to figure out what's going on. Now, of course, that doesn't happen in real life. Now, that would never really work very well. As far as I know, I stand to be corrected. I'm quite literally standing, but it won't work. The enemy are not going to be doing that. That's the bottom line. So that's point number one. Point number two, where they just kind of fall into their roles. That can work if the system that you're playing is flexible enough to allow the characters to fall into different roles and then not screw up. The most frustrating thing for me when it comes to things like starships and sailing ships, and this is why I wrote nautical campaigns in the first place, is because you get a player who goes, oh, I want to play pilot, but I don't want to have any piloting skills. Okay. Or, most likely, I want to play a bounty hunter. I put all my points into tracking, into finding people, into killing people, into murdering and slaughtering and freezing people. Oh, I've now been landed with the piloting position because everyone else is doing all the other cool stuff. I can't pilot to save my life, so, oh, look, we crashed and everyone died. It's so frustrating because it's not a realistic situation. If you and a bunch of friends jumped into an automobile, into a motor car, into, one of those new fandangled contraptions of the last 120 years, if you were to climb into one of those and the person in the driver's seat was like, guys, I don't have a clue on how to do this. No one in their right mind would say, oh, just wing it. It's fine. Just wing it. I'm just going to shoot my Uzi out the window. Doesn't happen. But in games, this does happen when there isn't a clear command structure. Someone gets landed doing a role that they have no skills for whatsoever. What is the result? The result is A, they don't have fun because they can't hit, do, or enact anything because they don't have the right skill sets for it. B, those that do have the right skill sets are going, oh, this is so much fun. I'm shooting everything and I'm just being a hero. Oh, we can't fly because you don't even know how to turn the thing on. We can't scan. We can't navigate. We can't sail because you've hit a reef. You idiot! So there's a whole lot of negatives that come onto that. So unless your system allows for anybody to take the position and not be affected by their character build, but be affected by their own personal decision making, which is a difference, you're in trouble. Like I said, and I'm only using this as an example. One of the reasons why I wrote Nautical campaigns was because I don't like the idea that the characters have to either get locked into a role, or they're locked out of a role because they don't have the right skills because they wanted to build something that was fun and exciting, not because they wanted to build something that fits onto the ship. So when it comes to these command structures, these are the things you've got to look at. The final one, of course, is where everyone just decides on their role. I'll be the captain, I'll be the doctor, I'll be this, I'll be the that, and I'll be the next thing. I have still had games where people have gone, oh, I'll be the helmsman. And then when you come to them making a role, they go, well, I actually didn't take anything in helm because I wanted to be a crazy helmsman. I wanted to be a helmsman who kind of, survives by chance. What? You've just undone the whole reason for having a command structure. You really have. So what was, right. Anyway, again, Nautical campaigns, I solved all of that by saying, right, it doesn't matter what your skill base is, because it's not you who's enacting it, it's the crew who's enacting it. So it works for big scale ships and that sort of thing, which for sailing ships is definitely where you need to end up. That's what those 4 or 5 NPCs are for. So once you have got your players to decide on a command structure, make sure that they stick to it. There's a whole bunch of videos that I've done on how to deal with rank and being noble over your other fellow players and that sort of thing. Send your players to go and watch those videos if they're not sure how to be a captain who actually engages with their crew rather than just being a dictator. Now, your adventures. You need to have both adventures on ship and off ship. What has been established? Well, let's look at those expectations. Treasure, sea monsters, ship-to-ship battles, all of that kind of stuff. Off ship is standard adventuring fare. Go into the Lost Temple to find the treasure. Go and raid the castle. Go and raid the port. Go and raid this. Go and raid that. Go and do this. Go and do that. Go and rescue the princess. All of that kind of stuff. That's stock standard role-playing fare. That's easy enough to handle. You can put a nautical spin on it, of course, in terms of it's an island, so they have to sail there. So the ship gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of moving your people all over the world so they can explore cultures and things very differently, which is very exciting. On ship, however, is where you need to start thinking about, okay, what happens on a ship? What can I do on a ship? And that's where we're going to look at our sources to help us in terms of determining those kinds of things. Very briefly, though, again, go back to your 4 types of adventures: thwarting, discovering, collecting, or delivering. And look at them on the ship. How do we do a collecting on the ship? What do you need to collect? Captain, food stocks are low. We're running out of food, so we're going to try and do some fishing. Oh, we caught something that's bigger than the boat. What do? That's a collection mission, trying to collect food. We're trying to deliver this cargo from point A to point B, but the cargo's eating the ship. What do? All those kinds of things. That's delivery mission, thwarting mission. There's a mutiny. There's one person who's trying to sabotage the ship. It's a thwarting mission. Discovering mission. You're literally sailing into unknown waters. I mean, it's all there. It's all there for you to contemplate. Underwater. Do we need to go underwater? Yes or no? Again, it depends on the system. If you're running a more authentic type of system, then yes, absolutely, you don't have to worry too much about underwater, except in terms of how it will kill your crew. If, however, you are running in a fantasy game, you've got mermaids, you've got Sahaugen, you've got all these kinds of wonderful underwater things, shark people and crab people, and it's all there. You then need to think about, how do you get your crew down there and keep them down there safely? So is that potions of water breathing are easily accessible? Are there bits of equipment that they can wear that allows them to breathe underwater and gives them a swimming speed if your game uses distance and those kinds of things? All of those things you need to take into account, and then cognitively and consciously add them to your game. There's nothing more frustrating being a player and going, I want to go underwater, but you've made water breathing potions cost 500 silver leks, and we only earn like 50 an adventure, so can't do it. Don't deny spaces for your players to play in because you haven't thought about it. Okay, sources. Let's look at sources. Sources, we got so many sources. We got history. We got paintings by crazy, Danish photographers / painters, who died on the 10th of January. It was very sad. It's very sad. I wasn't there, of course. I was busy at the time. Yes, so history. Look at history. The history books are full of things. Explore, understand, unpack, be inspired by them. Look at cool stuff. And when we say history, we don't just say looking at the 17th, 18th century period on Earth's history where we had these kinds of wonderful sailing ships. Look even further back. Look at the Roman galleys. Look at the Egyptian ships. Look at the Korean turtle ships, which I was shown the other day. There are all kinds of amazing, wonderful things out there. Movies and books, of course. Well, movies, there are so many movies out there. It's crazy. Master and Commander, of course, is the big one that a lot of people talk about. But Captain Blood, Treasure Island, Disney has a whole bunch of them. So there are really a large amount of resources for you to look at in terms of movies, and in terms of books, there's even more. I mean, of course, there's now Hornblower is an amazing series about young Lieutenant Hornblower. He starts as an ensign, I think, and eventually becomes a captain or something marvelous. I forget now; it's been so long. They made that into a TV series, or you can go and read the books, and it's a wonderful romp through exactly the time period that one thinks of when we're thinking of nautical campaigns. Sci-fi TV shows, things like Battlestar Galactica. Star Trek, not so much Star Trek Discovery because that's very sci-fi space-based, but more the original stuff, or Orville if you want to go more contemporary. Those shows, sci-fi shows, take the starship, put it onto the ocean, it's identical. There is virtually no difference. Oh, they've discovered a new planet? It's a new island. They've discovered a planet that is sometimes there and sometimes isn't? It's a new island that's sometimes there and sometimes isn't. We have the power of magic, aka sci-fi, at our disposal. Let's use it. Let's look at it. So Star Trek alone, you've got the original series, which was 67 episodes. Then you've got TNG, which is 125. You've got Voyager, which is 125. And you've got Deep Space Nine, which is 125 episodes. Then you've got Enterprise, you really have to. And Enterprise was, what it deserved to be, which was not 125 episodes. You've got... I'm not going to say any more because there is so much. So those are all of our sources. Okay, so let's look at the bonus. Let's look at bonus material because you have now stayed for this video. This very, very long video on nautical campaigns and settings and things. So focus should remain on the PCs. This is important. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is that so often we have these ships that have got large amounts of crew on them, or these NPCs that you've created, and the NPCs run the risk of being better than the PCs when it comes to stuff. So if you have to have an NPC helmsman because no one wants to take the wheel and steer the ship, if that NPC helmsman is better, you've statted them out, you've made the mistake that they are fulfilling all of the likability traits, they are completely reliable, they are proactive, and they are likable, and they are completely skilled up, why are they not the feature PC, and why are the PCs who can't do a thing? So the focus must remain on the PCs. Even though it's a ship-based game and there's ships involved and it's all that wonderful kind of stuff, make sure that the PCs are still the center of your story. The NPCs must remain on the ship. Now, this is something that is frequently forgotten about. A ship becomes effectively like a horse when your PCs are on land. What do we do with it? Where do we put it? Does it get eaten? Does it get attacked? Does it wander off? What do we do? So the NPCs should remain on the ship for the most part. If you have an NPC who's a doctor and the party says, well, doctor, you should come with us because that's what we want you to do, have them go along as you would a normal NPC supporter or guide or whatever it is that you're going to be using them as in that adventure. On the other hand, if the PCs start relying on these people, they have effectively got 40 individuals or 30 or however big the crew of that ship might be. Those count, in my head anyway, as magic items. Oh, we've got a doctor. Okay, well, we've just got a magic item of, it's basically like a staff of cure wounds or all right, we need to limit the usages of that. So we make sure that they can only do specific things at a certain time and then they're not overpowered. Always remind the PCs that they need to leave someone behind on the ship, and not just one or two people. That's the other thing, not just one or two people. These ships are worth thousands or hundreds of thousands of coin, whatever your monetary system might be. If you don't leave it protected, it will get stolen. Bottom line. So make sure that there are always PCs left and make sure that they remain on the ship. Trade. It's going to happen. The PCs are going to realize, hang on a moment. Wow, yeah. Our ship can carry how many tons? 200 tons of cargo? And we're sailing from here to there. If we charge 100 gold pieces per ton, we're making 2,000 gold pieces just to sail from there to there. Our adventuring days are over. We're going to become traders. These vessels provide the crew, the PCs, with a massive source of income. So make sure to offset that income with a big cost. Is it the cost of the crew salaries, the food, the repair bills, all those kinds of things? Because they will be trading and it will be offsetting your game completely. It's far easier to sail. Oh, well, we sail for 3 weeks from port A to port B and we sell cargo. Far easier than going into a dungeon and being turned by a beholder and destroyed. Oh, we're just going to sail. We're just going to sail. That's what life is like. So bear in mind, when there's trade, you have to offset it with the costs. This is the last time I'm going to talk about nautical campaigns. But again, this was something that we looked at in nautical campaigns and said, okay, how do we offset the costs of running the ship versus trade? What does trade earn the crew in terms of those kinds of things? So it is all in there because these are things that were going through my head for the last 20 years. And I'm like, okay, here's a book. This is going to sort it out. Whatever system you're using, hopefully they resolve these so that you're not sitting there scratching your head going, well, I don't know how much. I don't know. It's going to come up. It really is going to come up unless you have a super focused group of people who don't utilize everything to the maximum, which some adventuring parties are like, but most of them like to take complete and utter advantage of everything. So this is nautical campaigns. This is what we expect, what's been established and what you need to establish, and our sources for inspiration, as well as some little bonus material. I hope it's been useful. I hope it's been helpful for you. And if it has, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. That Goblin Bell is there for you to hit so that you can get a reminder every time we release new content. And until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.